What's up guys, Gavin here, and today I am featuring a Paleozoic Frog deck profile, and to be honest, this one has kind of blown me out of the water with how much fun it is to play. I mean, I was looking at the Amazement archetype and I was like, wow, this archetype looks pretty cool, but it's a little bit expensive for how good it is. I didn't really see the justification for spending, over like $150 on the deck when it's not all that good in my opinion, in terms of how competitive it is. So if I'm going to play a fun back row deck, I just went with one of the most budget options, and honestly this one is pretty budget. So anyways, let's get right into it. We're going to start with 3 Swap Frog, 2 Ronin Totem, and 3 Dupe Frog. So these cards, it's pretty standard for the Frog package. You definitely want to open Swap Frog. Opening Ronin Totem by itself is kind of bad. It's actually really bad, so I'm only playing 2 of that card. And then 3 Dupe, because Dupe isn't the worst thing to open in the world, but yeah, I mean these cards really just get you to totally awesome, and if you can see a Swap Frog with one of these other 2 frogs, that's totally awesome on your first turn, which is what you want to be going for. So anyways, for the other monster we do play 2 copies of Absolute King Backjack. This card is crazy cool. So if you don't know what this card does, if it gets sent to the graveyard, you can reveal the top 3 cards of your deck and stack them however you'd like. And during your opponent's turn, you can banish this card from your graveyard on a quick effect. And then you can go ahead and reveal the top card of your deck. And if it's a normal trap card, you can set it and activate it that turn. So this card is really cool to be able to mill off of something like a Needlebug Nest. And overall, just a really fun card. If we happen to open it without any other monsters, we also play the Link Rebo to link this guy off. So we can go ahead and get his effect as well. For the spells, we're only playing 4. We're playing 1 copy of Card of Demise to refill our hand. This card is pretty nice, I guess. I mean, pretty nice to open because you're not really special summoning on your first turn anyways. But yeah, it just gets you into more traps because most of this deck, if you can't see already, is traps. And then 1 copy of Terraforming and 2 copies of Mystic Mine, because this deck's biggest weakness is definitely going second. It can be difficult to play this deck going second, so we kind of need all the help we can get, and just playing Mystic Mine Mystic Mine isn't the most friendly way of playing going second, but we got to do what we can. So also, it's not the worst thing to have this up even if you have like monsters on your field, because a lot of the times Paleozoic Olenoides, which pop spells and traps, it can be dead sometimes. So if you can just use it to pop your own Mystic Mine after stalling on it for enough time, so you can assemble all the traps that you need to get your plays going once again. So it's not the worst. I kind of like it, and we're experimenting with it. So anyways, for the trap cards, we're playing triple copies of Paleozoic Leoncoilia. I don't really know how to pronounce it. I'm not the best at pronouncing things, but this one just returns a banished monster to the graveyard, or not just a banished monster, a banished card, which is actually really important for recycling resources in this deck. So you can actually recycle Absolute King Backjack, which is really cool. But more importantly, the card that we recycle all the time is Rise to Full Height. And let me read this card, because this card, I had never heard of this card for a while, but like after I started playing in this deck, that's really what made me fall in love with it, is because Rise to Full Height is so cool. So basically, it's on field effect. You target one face-up monster on the field, double its defense, but its defense becomes 0 at the end of the turn. This is not the important effect of the card. Yes, you can use it to chain a Paleo so that you can get one out of the grave, but the best part of this card is its its graveyard effect, which allows you to banish this card from the graveyard, then target one monster that you control, and for the rest of the turn, your opponent cannot attack monsters except for that monster. So if that monster leaves the field, they can't attack. And this deck just loves to stall. So if you can just stall with this card until you can assemble, enough totally awesomes and Paleozoic Xyz monsters, you're gonna win the game. I mean, this card is actually insane, and recycling it with Leoncoilia just gives you like tons of stall, and it's actually ridiculous. This card is so stupidly good in this deck, and I just love playing it. Anyways, for more Paleozoics, we play 3 copies of Olenoides for spell and trap removal, and also popping your own Mystic Mine if you need to, and then 2 copies of Dynamistress. Just playing this card at 2 because it's a little bit neggy. You gotta discard 1 in order to use its effect. Also, none of these cards like really pay cost. Like all the like costs in these Paleozoic cards are like part of the effect, so it's kind of weird. Like most of the time you would discard the card first before like the card resolves, but like the card is resolving, you're discarding, and it's kind of weird because you can't actually get like a Paleo engraved before using this card's effect. So it's like not amazing, but it's still pretty good. And then we're playing 3 copies of Morella. Morella is really good because it dumps the Rise to Full Height and Lost Wind into the graveyard, and those cards just really like being in the graveyard. If you notice anything about this build, it's that most of the traps do something in the graveyard. Most of the cards want to be able to do something in the graveyard because of Needlebug Nest. And then we are playing 3 copies of Trap Trick to turbo whatever trap that we need. And yeah, this card, absolutely amazing. And then Needlebug Nest, also absolutely amazing when it resolves. This card is absolutely hilarious. And then 1 copy of Metaverse. It's a chainable trap that gets us access to Mystic Mine, which is always nice. And then we play 3 copies of Paleozoic Canadia, which is a Book of Moon. So that's it for the main deck. Let's go on into the extra deck real quick. And then, so we're playing 1 copy of Link Karibo, Link Off Backjack, 1 copy of Link Spider to get us an effect monster for Boral Sword, 1 copy of Camp Roarstir. I'm really not impressed by this card, but I'm just playing it anyways. I'm probably going to replace this card really soon because it's not really doing a whole lot. I like never make it, so but I guess you couldn't use it to go into the Boral Sword as well. And then Miss Starboy, also not a card that I make super often in this build. And then Boral Sword, it's actually really good for OTKs because this deck does struggle to put damage onto the board. But once you are flooding all those Paleos, and once you're like in a winning position, this card actually just like accelerates you to actually getting the damage you need to close out the game, because that's something that this deck really struggles to do on its own. And then 2 copies of Opabinia. So this one searches a Paleozoic trap and allows you to activate them from hand, which is really crazy. 1 copy of Cat Shark, which is probably also on its way out because Sky Cavalry is just better in my opinion. But this card is so cute too. Like, come on, if you've seen the real version of this card, it's really cool. So also 3 copies of Totally Awesome. That's standard and definitely wouldn't be playing any less of those. 1 copy of the big Paleo XYZ. This one pops cards on your turn and your opponent's turn. Really good. Also, one thing I forgot to mention about this deck, all the Paleozoic monsters are unaffected by monster effects, and if they didn't have that ability, this deck would be actually unplayable because it'd just be too easy to out them. But all these cards require like spell and traps to be able to out, and that's also why Rise to Full Height is so good, because not a lot of decks have spell and trap removal. Yes, Sky Striker is now a deck that you have to watch out for, and they do have the Afterburners, which is actually a really big pain for this deck, and why Sky Strikers is a difficult matchup. But yeah, anyways, Downward Magician for slapping on top of a rank 2 or 3 XYZs. We don't play any rank 3s actually, so just slap this card onto a rank 2 XYZ and then make Zeus for board clearing. This card is really a lifesaver for this deck, because before this deck was really hard to play because even if you were able to go into one of these nice XYZ monsters, it was still difficult to catch up because this card is a Paleozoic. The big one is once per turn. This one's also once per turn, so it's going to take you some time to catch up. But Zeus just can clear the entire board and actually level out the playing field really nicely. So, anyways, for the extra deck or the side deck, excuse me. Once again, deck struggles going second, so we're playing 2 copies of Sea Turtle, and then 3 copies of Lava Golem for tributing off our opponent's monsters, 2 copies of Mana Dragon Zernitron. So this card is actually, you've probably never seen this one before either, but this one is basically helps save your back row a little bit, because if a spell or trap you control is destroyed or banished, you can special summon this card from your hand or graveyard, which is really nice because, once again, being this deck milling lots of cards, likes to have cards in the graveyards that do things. So this card does that. You can reset one of your trap cards that is banished or destroyed in the graveyard, which is nice. And it doesn't actually have to be a card that was just destroyed. It can be any trap that's in your banished pile or your graveyard, which is quite nice. And then 3 copies of Evenly Matched. Evenly Matched is just another go second card. against other back row decks. And then this card is pretty spice against like something like Sky Striker. It just requires a little bit too much setup, unfortunately, but it's still like when it resolves in the right matchup, it's pretty game winning. White Howling, if you control water monster, target one spell in your opponent's graveyard, banish it, and if you do for the rest of the game, you negate, not for the rest of the game, for the rest of the turn, you can negate the spell effects on your opponent's field, which is really cool. And then 2 copies of Judgment for game 2 when you know you're going first, so why not just slap a couple Judgments in your deck. And yeah, I mean, this card is just the protector of back row, right? So that's it for the deck profile. Let's go on into a game and just to show you guys how this deck functions. It's pretty fun. Okay, so for this game, I'm playing against Salamangreat Great. My opening hand is actually pretty good. I got Swap Frog, Leonkalia, Morella, Mystic Mine, and Trap Trick. And my opponent has got Double Desires, Ash, Salamangreat Great Roar, and Spinny. So I guess his hand's alright. He's just going to go ahead and start by activating the Pot of Desires. Go ahead, banish 10 off the top, draw 2. He does draw into the Gazelle, which is really nice for him. So he's going to go ahead and normal summon Spinny, go into Baelings, go ahead and activate the Gazelle, use the Gazelle effect to dump a Jaguar to graveyard, link off into Sunlight Wolf, and use Jaguar's effect after setting the Salamangreat Great Roar, and then use the Jaguar effect, bring itself out, and use the Sunlight Wolf effect, of course, to add back the Gazelle to hand. And he's going to just pass there, so actually not that great of a turn for him. But anyways, I'm going to start my turn off by activating Mystic Mine, because I just want to make sure I burn through his back row there. It's just, you know, to negate it, because otherwise my hand is actually quite solid. So he's just going to negate the Mystic Mine, which is completely fine with me. I'm going to normal summon the swap. He's going to Ash that, which is also fine, I guess. Set 3 back row, then I'll activate the Card of Demise, because I don't see myself special summoning here again. So I open up 2 more copies of Morella, which is really good, and then this is going to go to the graveyard, which is where I want it to be. So that's why I didn't bother setting it. So I don't know if I said this in the intro or not, but like this deck is actually a combo deck. You just do the combo on your opponent's turn. So I'm going to start with activating Morella to dump a Lost Wind into the graveyard, because that's like the next best thing to dump after the Rise to Full Height. So I'm going to start with that. Use Rise to Full Height on the Swap Frog, just to make it so my opponent can't go for game here. Then I'm going to use the Leonkalia to shuffle back, or put back the Rise to Full Height, and then chain the Morella to that, so that I can start getting my Paleozoics going. And so now the Morella is not going to be able to be attacked, because I just used Rise to Full Height on Swap Frog, which affects the player. Which effects that affect the players are like one of the strongest effects in my opinion. So we're in a really good spot right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and chill here for a bit. And he's going to go and use the Heatleo, which I'm going to change the Lost World to. And then he's going to chain Gazelle. And then I'm going to activate Trap Trick, because I definitely want to be able to use the Trap Trick to set whatever trap I want. And then I'm going to use the Morella, because after using Trap Trick, I'm not going to be activating other traps really. So I'm only going to get one trap activation after that resolves, which is fine, because I do have another copy of Morella set. So I don't really need to use all my traps here. So anyways, I'm going to set the Lost Wind, and yeah, we're still, you know, getting our Paleozoics on board, just doing what we want to do. So our opponent is going to continue going on with his combo, going to Mirage Stalio, which is fine. And then he's going to go into the Foxy, and then use the Jaguar effect to summon itself back out. Go into Update Jammer, which is honestly weird. This Salad player is just kind of making me cringe a little bit. I don't think these are really the right plays, but it's fine. And he's going to realize that, you know, maybe he went into Update Jammer thinking that he could actually go into Access Code Talker or something, but you know, a lot of people just don't understand that Mirage Stalio, even Salad players, like people who are new on this deck, they don't really understand that this card hard locks you out of going into Access Code Talker. I mean, technically you still can, but I don't know. I mean, you're not going to be able to use its effects, right? So it's kind of pointless. And then during the end step, I'm going to go ahead and use the Needlebug Nest, Chain of Paleo, get 5 more cards into graveyard, and we do hit the backjack, which is insane, you know. And we are going to, I don't use the backjack there, which was kind of a mistake, I guess. But just going to set the trap trick, and then go into the Opabenia, which is really nice. And then get the Leoncalia back. Use Leoncalia. I probably should have waited, I guess. This may not have been the best one to go into, but it doesn't really matter because we are very much winning this game, in a very winning position right here. Go into Toad, then use Morella, chain another Paleo, and dump a Lost Wind. Use Lost Wind on the Helio to chain another Paleo. Go ahead and slap into another Toad, just so we can beat over all the stuff. Just gonna go with Update Jammer, which is like fine. He's not going to have the Mirage Stallion destroyed because he's just gonna banish the Balinks, which is fine. And then I'll destroy the Update Jammer and go into a Zeus here after going into downward position, so I can use Zeus twice, which is really nice. So basically kind of sealing the deal here. You can use Toad's effect, summon out a swap effect, pitch a Ronin Toad in, and we're just kind of just cruise control here, just, you know, on our way to winning this game. Go ahead, chain trap trick, just get another Paleo out of deck. It doesn't really matter at this point. He's going to go into Access Code Talker, and it really doesn't matter here, because we are just going full ham, just negating everything, and we're just going to go ahead and, you know, destroy this when we can. Chain in more Paleos. This deck is actually pretty difficult to play in person because, I don't know, I mean, you guys can just see here, like, there's just tons of stuff going on, and it's just actually quite technical. So I'm not going to destroy this, but we are going to use the Zeus effect to wipe the board of everything. And of course the Paleo monsters are unaffected, which is why Zeus is also a godsend for this deck, because you can wipe your opponent's board without really doing too much damage to your own board, which is super nice. And he's just out of resources at this point, just gonna go for Desires, desperately looking for something. Gonna go for Signet Mining, dumping the Bell, gonna go into Spinny, but you know, he doesn't really have anything else he can do here, because yeah, I mean, what's he gonna do? Just do with one more Balinks. But anyways, so that's it for the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that one as much as I enjoyed playing the Paleo Frogs. If you did make it to the end of the video, I appreciate you, and if you did like the video, I would appreciate if you showed it by clicking the like button. And if you don't want to miss any more of my videos, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And with that, I'm just going to leave you guys with a peace out and have a nice day. Goodbye.